Astonishing Legends Network.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. We got a change in plans. We were going to release 209 today, but we're not going to do that. There have been some delays in post-production. Some of our team have life issues coming up. Everybody's okay, but we're going to be delaying it one cycle, okay? So we'll continue with our regularly scheduled programming in 2 weeks, but I didn't want to leave you hanging today, so I figured I'd talk a little bit and kind of do a casual AMA with myself. And at least that way I'll actually get some questions answered because I can burn right through it. So we'll talk for a little while, and I just wanted to spend some time with you guys. I hope you're doing well. I hope you survived January. I gotta tell you, I just managed to scrape through by the skin of my teeth. I can't believe I'm still in January. I hope February's a little better. I think it will be. Let's all focus on that. All right, here we go. All right, question 1. Why do you curse so much on your show? Sometimes it feels unneeded. Okay, you're not the first one to ask this question. I get asked this a lot. I don't know, a couple reasons. I curse because that is the way I normally talk. So just sort of bringing you in on who I am, that's part of it. I also do it, and I hope this makes sense. I need an explicit rating on this show. Okay. In fact, I should probably curse right now. Fuck that thing. Anyway, here's my point. I talk about grown-up stuff on my show, all right? And I know that my voice and my manner can be very engaging and welcoming, but I also know that some people don't want their kids hearing bad words, but they also don't want them hearing people talk frankly about sex and various other grown-up things that happen. And like it or not, my show is concerned with grown-up stuff. And here's the weird thing. Even when you're a kid, you're dealing with grown-up stuff. And I want to acknowledge that too. But everyone parents differently. I don't want to step on anyone's parenting toes. So I just sort of let you do what you want. If you want your kids to listen to the show, I'm certainly okay with that. But I will not necessarily censor a curse word because I would like to stake out that ground and kind of remind the listener that this is not necessarily safe for all kids. So that's kind of why I don't worry and I don't try to not curse, because by not cursing and getting a clean rating, I feel that I would be sort of inadvertently saying, come on, everyone can listen. And then we get into real personal, serious stuff, and that becomes even more complicated. So I hope that's a clear answer. Okay. Excuse me, I'm going to take a little sip of my drink. By the way, I hope you saw my video that dropped on Instagram and I think YouTube over the weekend. I'm enjoying one of those martinis right now, folks. I don't know about you, but am I doing this alone? I hope not. All right, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. I give the exact recipe for the Richard Hatem martini, and boy, I would love to hear what you guys think of that. If any of you can survive through that, I want to hear the story. All right. Next question. There seem to be a lot of animals around your house, showing up at various times. How many pets do you have? Okay. Let me explain the pet situation at our house. I'll kind of go size-wise. Let's start with the dogs. Our 2 dogs are Bowie and Luna. I don't know what they are other than that they are siblings. I do know that. They were born at the same time, same day, but I think they're from different dads because they seem to be almost different breeds in a way. They both kind of have that oatmeal color, and they both sort of look like a lot of dogs you see on the street. Bowie is bigger and looks more like a sheepdog. Luna is a little smaller, a little more svelte, and has kind of a terrier face. They love each other. They cannot be separated. But Bowie is big and Luna is little. Luna, I believe, thinks that her job in life is to take care of Bowie. It's sort of like an of mice and men sort of relationship, I think. If you know that book. Luna is constantly keeping an eye on Bowie, making sure he doesn't do anything wrong, but Bowie just kind of lumbers around and flops down and sleeps and begins snoring. But Luna wants to make sure he is safe at all times and is sort of herding him and barking at him and running over and kind of putting her teeth on him just to make sure he's behaving correctly. But I do think it's coming from a place of care. Okay, so that's for the dogs. Now, let me explain the cats. And I've talked about the cats in the podcast, but I need to update you on the cat situation. Okay, so right now we have Monkey. Monkey is an orange cat, a marmalade, and he is delightful. Just a lover, not a fighter. He's the kind of cat that if you sit down, he runs right up and jumps up on your lap and starts purring. And he's delightful. Now for a long time, we've had Bowie and Luna since 2016, summer of 2016. And we got Monkey and Monkey's kind of stepsister, Stormy, who was all black Bombay, with green eyes. They were COVID cats. We got them August of 2020, and they were babies. And they were not technically brother and sister, but they were kind of essentially brother and sister. And so their personalities were very clear. Monkey was the lover. Stormy was a little bit more aloof. Stormy, her habit was she would sit in the soft chair in my office. So I'd be kind of looking right at her if I looked past my computer screen. And she would be sitting on that chair. And for the longest time, I would feel like, well, I can't go sit down. I want to kind of transfer over into that chair, maybe read, maybe take a nap. But I can't because Stormy's there. And if I get anywhere near her, she's going to run away. Finally, one day, I just was like, I got to sit in that chair. I'm tired. I want to read. I want to take a nap. So she can do whatever she wants. I went over. I sat down. She didn't move. She just sort of was like, look, I was here first. You can find your own space. But what happened was I just sort of sat down and kind of shoved her aside, and she was jammed up like in between my hip and the side of the chair. And she just stayed there. And then I was like, oh, I think she likes this. I think she likes kind of being pressed into a spot or something because she didn't leave. And then this for years became our habit. I would just go over there. I would sit down. She wouldn't run away. Now, she wouldn't get on my lap. She would just stay jammed up. And we had the best time. And I would pet her. But she was a little, the way I would describe them, I would say, physically, if you're interacting with Monkey, if he's on your lap or lying on you, he's like an unstructured velvet bag filled with powdered donuts. And Stormy is an old turnip. She just always felt a little tense. You could pet her, but she wasn't sure. She wanted to be comfortable, but then she didn't want to relax too much. And I don't know. She was a whole different vibe coming off Stormy. Anyway, you probably know where this story is going. Last summer, Stormy got out. She was always more interested in going outside, and Monkey and Stormy are indoor animals. They never go outside. Where we live in Pasadena, the coyote population is just out of control. And I would just never trust having cats outdoors. But Stormy got out and she was determined and she got out. And miraculously, the very next day we found her. We saw her in our front yard and we managed to kind of surround her and get her. But once we did, we noticed that she had injured her right paw. So we took her to the vet and they said, well, maybe there's some nerve damage, but it's not broken. Just, take her home and try to keep her contained and put her in this collar. And we knew she was going to hate that. But anyway, we did that. And for about a month, we were nursing her back to health. Weirdly, the minute the collar came off, and this is insane to us, but she got out again. And this time she didn't come back. We saw her in our yard maybe a week later, tried to get her, were unable to get her, and we have not seen her since. We do not know what happened to Stormy. We love Stormy. We loved Stormy. She had another mission to fulfill in her life. And so we think about her all the time, and we miss her and we love her. And Stormy, if you're out there within the sound of my voice, come on back. You don't even have to come live with us. Just wave at us from the end of the block and then disappear back off into the night and continue the legend of Stormy, whose full name upon our getting her and naming her was Stormageddon, Glorious Diamond of the West. Monkey was always just Monkey. All right, question 3. Did you ever have further contact with Stephen J. Cannell? Okay, if you heard the last 2 episodes, episodes 7 and 8, you know that what this question refers to. Stephen J. Cannell is a TV writer, was a TV writer and producer of shows like Beretta, The Rockford Files, The Greatest American Hero, The A-Team, Stingray, Hardcastle and McCormick, Riptide, Prophet, all kinds of great shows. But especially for me, Rockford and The A-Team. Those were my favorites. But anyway, I told a story about meeting him. And the question now is, did I ever meet him again? The answer is yes, but I won't go into it now because it will get referred to in later podcasts. So keep listening and you'll eventually hear about another encounter. Question 4, are you still in touch with Larry? I am in touch with Larry. I'm in touch with Larry all the time. Again, if you've been listening to the show this season, I've mentioned Larry a number of times, and he'll find his way back into the podcast. And yes, I see Larry every weekend, and Larry is the same guy. There's more to know about him, but for now, let me just tell you, I see him every single weekend, and we're still best friends, and we still, when I'm with him, we're 16 again. Question 5. Is there a recent paranormal book you've enjoyed or would recommend? This is a great question because so many of the books I talk about are old. They're from decades past. But is there a more recent one? Yeah, there is. Check out Paranormal Ranger by Stanley Milford, and it's great. It took a little while to get into, but then I was surprised in the last half of the book, maybe the last third of the book. This guy had some fucked up stuff. I mean, like, if you want to have a paranormal experience, he's had the top 3: Alien, Bigfoot, and Poltergeist, and really like amazing encounters of a sort I've never really read about, especially the Bigfoot one. His witnessing of Bigfoot is fascinating. So I can definitely recommend The Paranormal Ranger by Stanley Milford. It's really terrific. I'm even considering maybe trying to get in touch with him, maybe getting him on the show for Patreon content or maybe a bonus episode. What do you guys think? Let me know. Okay. Boom. Question number 6. I know you teach writing classes, but I don't live in Los Angeles. Do you do online courses? No, I don't, but that is going to possibly change. So I do a class at UCLA. I was doing it once a year. Now I do it maybe twice a year. It's an evening class, like a 1 evening a week sort of thing through their extension program, their extension writing program. And I love doing it. I love driving out there. I love being on campus in a classroom with live students. And that's why I do it. It probably will not be hard for you to believe that I'm a bit of a ham. I like actually having human interaction. So unfortunately, you have to live in LA or near LA and get there on Wednesday nights to take my class. And I don't do online courses because there's just the connection isn't quite there. If I'm on a Zoom and there's, 15 or 20 or 30 squares and I'm just talking, I'm not really connecting with people. A one-on-one Zoom, however, is different. And so what I was going to say is this year at some point, I am going to start offering one-on-one coaching. And you guys will know about it because you listen to the show, and there'll be, ways to access it through the show notes, and there'll be a separate website. So if people are writing a TV pilot or a movie or whatever, there'll be a way to get in touch with me, and for an absolutely exorbitant price, we'll do a one-on-one Zoom, and I'll get your project in shape. So that's coming up, but I don't know when. But yeah, the teaching, I really enjoy teaching. It's becoming more of what I do. I feel like there are so many things that you feel and emotions you go through when you're starting the process of writing, especially if you're doing it because you want to make a living at it. And yeah, I can talk about character and structure and theme and all that kind of stuff, but I also like to talk about how it feels and maybe how to cut yourself some emotional slack, which is something I did not do. It took decades for me to get off my own case and just stop beating myself up about, oh, well, I'm not as good as this writer and I'll never be Stephen King or something. And it's like, you gotta clear that brush. That energy does not help the writing process. I can tell you from 40 years of doing it, the self-punishment does not help. That is not fuel. That is a blockade. But anyway, I think you know what I'm trying to say. That is also something that I want to try to share and at least open up that possibility for new young writers so they don't have to spend as much time as I did inflicting self-injury. And you can just get right to the work. Anyway, all right. We got that. Oh, here's a question. Oh my God. This came through one of the AMAs not too long ago, and I wasn't able to get to it. I'm going to try to get to it now. Here we go. Let's see. The question is, if you and your plus one, which in my case would be Susan, could have dinner and drinks, of course, with 3 authors, living or dead. Not that the author would be dead when I had dinner with them. I'd go back in time, or it would be some magical other dimension where they were still living. Who would join you? Who would be the author? And what would be the first question you asked each one? Okay, this is great. I thought about it. All of the authors I'm talking about here are dead. So that this puts this purely in the realm of fantasy. I didn't want to talk about any live authors because one day I might meet them. And so I figured I'd sort of leave that out. So here are the authors. I can almost guarantee you don't know any of them. The first one is a guy named Andrew Vax. Andrew Vax writes sort of noir crime detective fiction. Modern writer. He just passed away a couple of years ago. He is most famous for a character named Burke. The first Burke novel is entitled Flood. I definitely recommend you check it out. Here's the thing with Andrew Vax. He is a lawyer. He is a child advocate lawyer. When I say is, he was. And he, as a human being, was deeply, deeply committed to protecting children, mostly from violence, sexual violence, often inflicted within a domestic situation, sometimes a foster situation, but often just in one's own home. As a lawyer, he became aware of these crimes. He became obsessed. He became obsessed with the notion that as a species, we need to be very aware that some of us prey on our own young. And it appalled him. And so the books he writes are really fun, really entertaining books about crime, but they often have an angle of a person who has suffered some sort of trauma or abuse in their past, and they are looking for either revenge or justice or the solution to some other mystery. His hero, Burke, is fascinating. Burke's family of choice is even more fascinating. These are sort of almost, I want to say fantasy characters. While his subject matter is very realistic, in a way, the way he approaches it is so kind of epic. It's almost the stuff of like a manga or a graphic novel. And his voice is unmatched and so authentic and so engaging and often quite funny. So if you don't know Andrew Vachss, read Andrew Vachss if you think it's the sort of thing you might like. Why would I want to meet Andrew Vachss? Well, the first question, of course, I would ask any author ever is, would you sign my book? That's always the first question and the most important question. But if I did get to meet Andrew Vachss, I would ask him specifically because he never talks about it. Who were your influences? Who did you love to read in your youth? There's something very Dashiell Hammett-esque about his writing. So, and he doesn't, in interviews, he doesn't really talk about that. He talks about his interest, his sort of lifelong interest in protecting kids and how people can do that who are not lawyers, who are child advocates. But he doesn't spend a lot of time saying, oh my God, I loved Raymond Chandler or something. But his writing is so not really reminiscent, but it definitely fits into the class of Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett and the real hard-boiled detective writers that I would just love to know who he loved, because the fact of the matter is you cannot be a writer without being a reader. Stephen King said it and he's not wrong. It's absolutely true. And so I know he read someone. A guy like this doesn't just appear out of nowhere, sit down at a word processor or a typewriter and start writing and write the way he writes. He loved someone, and I want to know who he loved. All right, who's the second one? Well, this is way out of left field. This is a person who wrote, they're only a writer of a book because they wrote an autobiography. But what else did they write? Well, they wrote movies and they wrote music. And this is a man named Leslie Bricusse. He was British and he wrote amazing music for musicals. He wrote the music to Dr. Dolittle. He wrote the music for Willy Wonka. So if you know the song, then I'm going to sing it. Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Okay, that I can stand by. Nima, did you hear me sing? Not bad, eh? He wrote that song. Is there a better song that has ever been written? But more than any of those, he wrote the screenplay and all the music to the movie Scrooge. And Scrooge is not Scrooged with a D, not the Bill Murray. This is the Albert Finney, Shepperton Studios 1971 movie musical of A Christmas Carol. And it's my favorite movie. It's my favorite Christmas movie. It might be my favorite movie. It's the first movie I ever saw. And I'm going to end up writing about this at some point. There'll be a podcast that talks about this. But for now, what you need to know is that movie was foundational for me as an emotional experience. Not only because it introduced me to Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Again, I saw the movie when I was 5. I was very young, and the flood of emotions and emotional stimulation that came at me in that movie theater, which I'd never been in a movie theater, it was off the charts. I was in the red zone the entire time, and it imprinted on me. And so what I would ask him after asking him to sign his autobiography, which is, of course, appropriately titled Pure Imagination, I would ask him every last thing about the filming of that movie, because every second of it, every bit part, every piece of set design, every prop, all of it lives in my memory in such a way that I would question him about everything. So that would be, oh my God, I would give anything to talk to Leslie Bricusse. Okay, And then third, and I guarantee I'm writing about this guy soon. There will be a podcast about this guy and his main book. The guy's name is Hamlin Garland, and his book is called 40 Years of Psychic Research. Okay. He passed away decades ago. So his psychic research was all at the beginning of the last century, kind of 1900 to 1935. And he is fascinating. And that book is so cool because he was in a weird way, kind of a version of Houdini, except he would go and visit mediums. But he came away pretty convinced that they were doing something that was impossible. But the amazing thing about him was he was not really a believer, and he did not come from a place of religion or a place of spirituality or a place of grief. He was sort of just brought on by a friend who said, hey, look, we're doing this new magazine where we're going to be writing about this stuff, and you're a writer. He was kind of more of a novelist. And so his buddy said, Hamlin, start visiting these mediums and just test them and see what you find. And he went. And the great thing about Hamlin Garland was he was completely unflappable. Like there was nothing, I almost feel like he almost had no sense of the uncanny. He was aware that what he was witnessing was impossible. So he would, in the moment, do things to go, okay, well, let's make this harder. Okay, move away from the table. Okay, put your hands in the air. Okay, all right, ghost, now I want you to do this. And he would just, I wish I could be him, or I wish I could be at a seance with him and just see him operate, because he was never scared. And I'm telling you, you guys, I would be so scared. I like to think I'm a reasonable human being, but if I was at a seance and something happened, I would be terrified. And this guy, I would say he witnessed hundreds of seances where really weird shit went down, and he remained completely fascinated but unflappable. So he's amazing. His name is Hamlin Garland. The book is 40 Years of Psychic Research. I promise you, this will show up probably in season 4. Okay. What else we got? Is there a non-paranormal movie or TV show you've always wanted to write? So something not in the, supernatural or grim or any of that kind of stuff. And yes. Now, you'll be surprised by the subject matter, probably, but I've been playing with stacks of notes for a movie about this topic, but a TV show did get made. I think it was 8 episodes just a couple years ago. Danny Boyle did it. I am obsessed with the rock band, the Sex Pistols. I tell people I'm not really a music guy, but I love the Sex Pistols. And they, laugh and go, yeah, of course not, because that's not music, but it is. I love the Sex Pistols. I think they're funny. I love the music. I find their story fascinating. I don't know. There's just something, I'm just kind of obsessed. I've got all the books about them. I read all the stuff. I listen. I mean, they have one album. I've listened to it 500,000 times. I'll probably listen to it later today. I would give anything. Here's the problem. And here's what I've learned. My fear was that to write a movie about the Sex Pistols, or really anything about them, I would have to be 100% accurate. I couldn't invent anything. I couldn't even like move the chronology around to structure it the way a movie wants to be structured, because A, all the Sex Pistols are still alive except for Sid Vicious. And B, the fans would go, unacceptable. We know that's not right, and it's not the correct way to do it, and on and on and on. But then I saw a movie called Bohemian Rhapsody. And, I know the band Queen, and I like the band Queen. I'm not obsessed, but I like Queen. And I saw the movie and I loved the movie. And then I talked to my friend Larry, and Larry is like, that movie was total bullshit. This happened before that. He never did this. They never did that. This was out of order. That song didn't come out then. He did this first. He didn't do that until later. apparently the whole movie was a jumble. They took facts of Freddie Mercury's life and put him into a rock tumbler, and however they came out, they made it any way they wanted to make it. But people loved that movie, and fans of Queen loved that movie because they don't care about the facts. They care about the myth. They want to know about the guy. They can read about the guy, but they want to see that person's life presented in a dramatic way. And that's what I began to realize. There's a new movie out right now about Bob Dylan. I understand it's fantastic, and it plays fast and loose with the facts. I think in a weird way, people almost don't care. They just want a good story. And I don't know why that is a surprise to me. I have spent my entire life telling stories, but now I thought, oh, maybe there is a way. I'll just write about the Sex Pistols. I'll do whatever I want. Then about a month later, I saw a bus ad that said Pistols. And it was this 8-episode thing that Danny Boyle did. And I'm like, oh, they did it. It's already been done. So I watched that, and two things. It was fantastic. I loved it. And it was total bullshit. But it wasn't total bullshit, but it kind of was bullshit. There were all kinds of scenes and things and relationships that I know for a fact didn't happen. But as I was watching it, I'm like, you know what? I'm here. There's a guy playing Malcolm McLaren. There's a guy playing, John Lydon. I'm happy. I'm having a good time, and I'm feeling a Sex Pistols feeling. And there were things I enjoyed. And you know what? To be perfectly honest, it's even kind of fun to argue with stuff. It's even kind of fun to stand in judgment and go, oh, they got that wrong. And it was also fun because I was watching with Susan, and Susan doesn't know anything about the Sex Pistols other than that I like them and the songs that she's heard. And so she was like, wait, did that really happen? Did that really happen? And some of it, I was like, yeah, that really happened. And then some of it, most of it, a lot of it, I was like, no. But it didn't matter because it got to the heart of who they were. And emotionally, it felt like it was about them. And that was the most important thing. Okay. Question number 9. Is there stuff about you, your life, you won't talk about on your podcast? You know what? Absolutely. I have secrets. I know it seems weird because if you've been listening, it feels like I'm talking about everything. But let me tell you, yeah, for sure. There's things that I can't talk about. There's people that I know and relationships and all kinds of things. Also things involving my professional life that it just, now's not the time. Probably some of these things never will be spoken about for the good of other people and for the good of me. So, yeah, weirdly enough, there is stuff I won't talk about. Okay. Question 10. Oh, this is a question about my television show Miracles. So if you listened in season 1, the final 3 episodes are about the development of the show Miracles and sort of leading up through the point where the pilot got made and then was greenlit to be a TV show. And we eventually made 13 episodes. So here's the question. God is nowhere. God is now here. How did you come up with this? Okay. There's a thing in the pilot where there is a phenomena which apparently is real. It has a name, and it is called hemography. Hemography is when blood spontaneously forms into words. This sounds like the creepiest, most rare phenomenon ever, but it's almost like, but I think maybe where you might know of it is if you've seen The Exorcist. I think there was a scene in the original Exorcist where sort of like words appeared on her flesh, sort of like in red blisters. It's kind of like that, but the idea is that someone would bleed and their blood would go onto a surface and then immediately form words. Okay, apparently this has been reported. And in the pilot of Miracles, there is a scene where blood that has been spilled forms into words, but the question is, what are those words saying? Because if you think about what I just said, if you picture the words God is nowhere and the words God is now here, it's all the same letters. It's just that now here, if you take the words now and here and push them together, it says nowhere. Now, why is this significant and why did I use it? Well, I'll go back to the beginning. I learned about this in a UCLA class. Let me explain. In the year 1999, there was a lot of talk about the coming millennium. And as the year 2000 was rolling around on the radio, I think it was on NPR, they were talking to various writers and artists about what are you taking with you into the new century? You know, what do you not want to leave behind? Who are the writers? Who are the artists? Who are the thinkers that belong and will be necessary to us in the new century? So a lot of writers were talking about famous writers. And I suddenly realized how much I hadn't read. So I decided that in the year 2000, I would take a class. Maybe I'd take a class about Charles Dickens or William Faulkner or, I don't know, literally name a writer. There's so many. Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, a lot of the people sort of in the 1900s that I did not read. And then going back before that, many, many writers I do not have a deep knowledge of. And I thought, well, that's what I'll do. I'll grab a UCLA catalog and I'll take a class. All the classes were booked. The new quarter was starting. It was only a few days away. And the only thing they had was a class called The Bible as Literature, New Testament. And I'm like, you know what? I never went to church. I know really nothing about the Bible. But it is a cornerstone of Western literature in so many ways. So I'm like, you know what? It's the Bible as literature. It's a literature class. It's not really a religion class. It's more of a history class. So I thought, you know what? That would be interesting. I wonder what that's about. I took the class. The instructor was named Lynn Batten, a man. His name was Lynn Batten, and he was great. Super entertaining, made the class fascinating. The Bible, it turns out, is a difficult text to really parse, and it's not easy to read for me. So anyway, I don't know, halfway through the class, he explained that he's like, you know, we have to remember that what we're reading is a translation of a translation of a translation, and things get lost in translation, and now they've been lost in multiple translations. So it's very hard to know with any certainty what it is we're reading or what the original authors of the Bible meant. And the other problem is they were working with materials that were very rare. If it wasn't stone tablets, it was certainly paper of a style that was not in, there was no Office Depot to go buy reams of paper. So when writing was done on ancient documents, there was not a wasted centimeter. So all the letters were just jammed next to each other. And there often wasn't a clear definition between where one word ended and another began. And he said, now you might not think this is a problem, but let me give you an example. And so he wrote, God is now here or nowhere, but he wrote all those letters all smashed together. And he said, okay, now everyone read it. Now close your eyes. Now raise your hand if what you read were the words, God is nowhere. Raise your hand. Okay. Now, raise your hand if you saw the words, God is now here. And everyone, some people raised their hands, and it was about 50-50. And he said, now, can you understand why this would be an important distinction? God is nowhere. God is now here. This is what we're dealing with. This is why this is difficult. This is why history is hard, and history is changing every day as we get better and better at deciphering what was meant, or we think we're getting better. Anyway, I thought that was fascinating. Cut to a year later, I'm working on a pilot. This class is way in the rearview mirror, and we needed something. We needed something mysterious to happen, and it needed to be very clear that something supernatural happened, but the meaning had to be debatable. And suddenly this popped back into my head and I'm like, oh, God is now here. God is nowhere. There's homography, and someone sees it one way and someone sees it another way. And that tells you something. And so that's how I put it in. So guys, you never know where the cool ideas are going to come from. That one literally just got laid out in front of me. And at the time, I thought nothing more of it. And a year later, I was able to use it and it became a really cool thing. So that is how that got into that show. Okay. Question 11. When are you coming to our city for a live show? Oh my God. You guys, a lot of people asking about this, and I am coming to your city. I am. That's the plan. I may not be in your exact city, but I'll be close to it. Okay. So the idea is probably starting in June. We're going to do an East Coast run, from Atlanta up to New York, and we're going to hit some major cities along the way. And then we're going to do a Midwest one where we're going to do for sure Cleveland, and then for sure Chicago, because by the way, God bless you, Chicago. You Chicago people, there are people in Chicago who love this show. And that is amazing to me because A, I've never been there, and B, I don't know anyone who lives there. So that always feels good to me. LA is my number one city, I think, but I know a lot of people here. But Chicago, they're listening because they like the show. So thank you, Chicago. I'm coming to Chicago. I want to go to St. Louis. And as it turns out, you can kind of drive from city to city within a day. And I can, do a night in one city, drive the next day, end up in the next city, do a show there. Here's where you guys can help me. Please reach out to me if you think you live in a place where more than 10 people would show up to see me. Because that'll be extra weight for me to show up to your town. If you think, I can guarantee 20 people, I can guarantee we'll sell 20 tickets, let me know. And I will make sure to prioritize your town. Otherwise, I'm just going to tell you where I'm going to be. I'm going to give you as much advance warning as I can. The tickets will be available on Eventbrite. I'll be there. Once you're there, we can meet, we can talk. I'm going to sell merch. And listen, the one we did in LA was a total blast. So if I can find haunted locations at which to do these readings of my podcast, I will do that. There will definitely have to be alcohol, because, you got to get your spirits one way or another. And we're going to have a good time, and there'll be music. It may not be live, but there will be music. So anyway, special guests. So let me know if you think you can really, turn out a crowd. Definitely let me know. But either way, we're going to do East Coast. We're going to do Midwest, and then into the fall, we're probably going to do Pacific Northwest, and then end up back in LA in October, like we did last year. So that's the plan. All right. I want this to turn into a thing. I do want to meet you guys and meet you where you live, because I don't get to travel that much. Okay. Question number 12. Oh, you know what? Okay. Hang on a second. I want to read you something. I got a message from somebody today, and I want to read it to you because the question, and I've gotten versions of this on the Facebook group and just, in personal DMs. And the question usually boils down to, what do you do to stay sane when the world feels crazy? And when, the world, your world, what do you do? I'll give you an example. I'm going to read you. I literally got this message today. Tess Feifel, flagged it for me. I'm going to read it to you. I'm not going to tell you the name of the person. I just want to read it to you. Dear Mr. Hatem, I've been wanting to reach out since the first season, but today I finally got all caught up with the new episodes. Honestly, I avoid listening until I have a really hard day where I feel like I won't make it through, and then I hit play. I don't want to come across as a groupie or a crazy person, which is why I literally avoid putting myself out there, but today is the day. I'm throwing it all aside and praying that you get this. I just want to say thank you. I wish I could explain to you how much I connect with what you say and your interests. But I also want to explain that when I listen, Your stories, your voice, and sense of humor helps me get through the dark days. I'm sure you get a lot of messages that say these kinds of things, and I'm sure all of those other people truly feel that way. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I sincerely appreciate you and how you open yourself up, and how you keep the tone of life goes on, because lately I feel like I'm just dragging my body around and that my soul left me because shit just went so wrong in so many ways. But listening to you has encouraged me to start writing, something I've always wanted to do but avoided because I was scared of how people would perceive me. I'm not talking about writing scripts or a fantasy book, but my own rotten story of clawing my way through life and still being able to see the beauty through the pain. Sometimes it's so hard to see those things, but when I listen to you, it helps remind me to look up, because reminding myself over and over again seems like a lie. So thank you for being yourself and being amazing. Well, to the person who wrote to me, first of all, thank you, and I hope you're doing okay. And I love that you're writing. I think that writing is a fantastic pursuit, separate and apart from any goal of selling that writing or becoming famous. There are a lot of ways to communicate. This person did it. Thank you. You communicated beautifully. I think if anyone out there has an urge at all to write, to act, to write music, to express yourself musically, artistically, in any way, really, please do it. The gifts are huge. You know, when I was coming up, it was all connected to fame and money. And you've heard it, you'll hear it more in the podcast, how that was what drove me. Fame, money, recognition. Those were the things that I thought I needed. And I did, to a certain extent. But luckily, I've lived long enough to get to a place where it now means something very different. And it's now something that I am privileged to share with you guys. And what I get back from you, believe me, it's not money, except for you Patreon people, and thank you. But it's interactions like this that mean everything. Connecting with people, it's vital. And on that subject, I thought about something, and I was going to write it in a podcast, and I might still, but I want to talk about the notion of building your own culture. This was something that was suggested to me when I was a teenager. And if I remember correctly, it came from my friend Herb's piano teacher, Charlotte Zelka, who was an amazing, crazy person who was probably in her 80s and acted like she was about 13. She was the greatest person, just life bursting out of her, and music and history and reading and travel. You know the kind of person I'm talking about. And I believe it was her who talked about building your own culture, because I would talk about how I wasn't into what everyone else was into. And, sometimes I wasn't into the music or the movies that other people liked. And she's like, well, as you get older, you learn to build your own culture. And she explained it. And what she meant was, you don't need to participate in the culture that the world gives you. You don't need to be on social media. And if you are, you can curate that pretty well too. You don't have to be interested in the movies and the music and the people and the voices that the world is shoving in your face. You can filter them out and instead build up what you do love. Buy the books that you love and keep them in front of you on a bookshelf. Listen to the music you love, even if it's from 80 years ago. And that's your music. The art that you love, surround yourself with that stuff. Really indulge your aesthetic. Build altars in your home to things that you care about, and focus on that. And more, the people my age, I'm 58, the people my age, my friends, I see them doing it and I love it. And I go to their homes and I'm like, what's this? What's that? And their personality is externalized all around them. And often it has nothing to do with any pop culture craze that's going on in 2025, let me tell you. And you know what? And that's great. And the people who are young in 2025, in 2075, maybe they'll be looking back at today and going, those were the good old days. So build your own culture and do it proudly and share it with who you feel safe sharing it with. And I wish you would share it with me, frankly. You guys have asked me so many great questions, and now I want to ask you some questions. And these are things we end up talking about on the Facebook group. And if you can join us there, please do. There is no finer group of people on the internet. What's your culture? What are the books that get you through? You share with me your memories. I'm sharing with you. I would love to hear if you've got a story from high school or some funny thing that happened to you when you were dating the person you fell in love with. I would love to hear about it. What are the old movies, new movies, things you care about, things you think I might like? I need those suggestions. I would love the new breath of fresh air. And then beyond that, for the show, are there interviews? Do you want me to do more interviews? I've done a few on Patreon. Some of them I'm featuring on the main feed. If you want more, let me know, and let me know who. Cocktail recipes. I'm putting them on Instagram now. Do you have some? I want to know what they are. Or food recipes. Give me those too, because I'm cooking. I'm starting to cook. That's a new thing. I'm very interested in what your cats and dogs are doing. So keep me up to date on that. And really any other things that get you through, share it with me and the other listeners here. Because that's what we're here for. I'm here for you. You guys, thank God, are here for me. We're here for each other. And I cannot wait to see you and communicate with you again in the way that we do in a couple of weeks when the next episode drops. So thanks for being here. And I will see you again soon. Find a light in the dark, as I always say. I think are we going to play our normal? I think we are. We'll play the normal outro. So I'm just going to wrap it up and say, thank you for being here. Thank you for this special episode. And we will get together again soon. Richard Hatem's Paranormal Bookshelf is presented by Astonishing Legends, 134 West, and Summerland Entertainment. Executive producers, Scott Philbrook, Forrest Burgess, and Susan Lambert. Our associate producer is Tess Feifel, and our sound designer, engineer, and editor is Kevin Ducey. Artwork is by Tommy Beaver, website is by Kayla Lord, and our music, as always, is by Nima Kazaruni. Please join us next time as we open Dr. Julie Beichel's book and begin investigating mediums. Until then, be safe and be well, find the light in the dark, and we'll see you again soon.